Good morning. I'm keeping it local today. It's too close for Christmas, I'm too busy, and it's too risky to ask for another pass out for another camp. But one thing I have missed from being out and about these last few times is being able to get out and do a really good long walk. So I've set off from home this morning just after 7 o'clock. It's now almost 8:30, and today I'm tackling the Harrogate Ringway. It's around about 20 miles long, skirts the outskirts of Harrogate and the outskirts of Knaresborough. Some of it I know really well, some of it I'm not familiar with, but knowledge is king. And I was able to make some significant progress this morning by avoiding a couple of muddy fields and paths, sticking to the roads and getting my head down, so I knew that when I did hit this woodland around Crimple Valley, it would be pretty much dawn and I could see where I was going quite comfortably. The weather when I left home was pretty grim. It was sleeting and I did have to question my judgment, but it started to brighten up nicely now, and that's no bad thing. And would you believe it? I've had 22 camps in 2024. That's a record even for me. Really pleased with it. And considering at the beginning of the year, I'd made my mind up that I wasn't going to go winter camping, I certainly made the most of it. And if I'm honest, there's maybe one or two camps that you would consider cold enough to be winter conditions. Most of it I've had pretty good weather. So what I thought I'd do as well is take a look back at some of the highlights from 2024. Especially if you're new to the channel, you haven't seen any of my videos. It'll give you a flavour about what it's all about and what plans I've got for the new year. So at the beginning of the year, I thought it might be interesting to try and find the most remote spot in the country. And in England, that threw up two possibilities. The first was relatively close to home in Yorkshire, always a bonus. Oh, this footpath. And the second was a good reference, pinpoint a location on the English side of the England-Scotland border. So in early January, I set off from Coniston in the Yorkshire Dales and I walked as far as Rigsmoor, and now that does feel remote. The weather was garbage, it was misty, the ground was really boggy and I couldn't camp there, but I was able to find a pitch that had some superb views. And even though my kit's not truly four-season, I still had a really comfortable night in the tent, albeit a long one. And that gave way to the idea of trying to visit all the most remote locations in all the 15 national parks in the UK. And what I found very quickly was that those national parks closer to the urban and industrial areas within the country were completely crisscrossed by roads. And the criteria that I used to deciding whether it was remote or not was the point's proximity to any local access roads. So when I went up to Northumbria, it was a little bit misleading because the area that I was walking in was crisscrossed by forestry tracks and it was really difficult to actually get to the point where I wanted to be. Well, this stretch of footpath's a little bit better. In fact, it's pretty good. And the other thing I found out quite quickly was no matter how remote a spot might be, it wasn't always practical, or it wasn't even possible to pitch at that location. So when I went up to Scotland and Loch Lomond in the Trossachs, where I wanted to pitch at the top of a hill, just wasn't possible. So out of the 15 national parks left, I've only got 5 to do. Unfortunately, they're the ones that involve the most driving. I've got Dartmoor and Exmoor, I've got the New Forest and the South Downs, and then finally, all the way up in Scotland, I've got the Cairngorms National Park. Now I've had a look at all those maps. I think I've identified where their most isolated spots are. Some are a little bit more easy to get to than others. Some of them will be quite a challenge. So if you've got any tips for those national parks, leave them in the comment section below, because I really do appreciate all the help and support that people have given me over the last 12 months especially. So this little bit of woodland that we're passing through now is shown on the map and marked as the Warren. It's just providing a little bit of cover from that wind. We're expecting 40 to 50 mile an hour winds today. It's not going to be pleasant, but there's no further rain forecast. So if anything, I'll dry out from this morning. I want to turn back around to head towards Knaresborough. Hopefully I'll have the wind at my back. So rather than take you through every single camp that I've done this year, what I thought I'd do is just pick out the highlights, and then if you stay watching to the end, I'll share with you what I think was my best camp of 2024, and the result might surprise you. So if I'm picking my most challenging camp, I think that's got to be the overnight bivvy on the Lyke Wake Walk. At that point, I'd already done about 30 miles, and having just crossed the Bog of Doom, didn't realise, or I couldn't remember exactly how boggy that section had been. So when I was looking for somewhere to pitch, there wasn't many opportunities. I did find somewhere, but by that stage I was absolutely shattered. And then to top it all, I had a bit of a kit malfunction. The ribs had expanded on my thermarest, and it made the bottom of the bag appear bulbous, and a really uncomfortable night's sleep. And to top it all, I had a real mixture of weather that day as well. I had strong winds, I had a hailstorm, just really everything. But I'm really fond of the Lyke walk. I'm even going to do it again in 2025. Although this time I think I'll go from Riv and Scar towards Motherley. And if you've not seen that video yet, I'll leave a link in the description below. You can go to that video and check it out yourself. So if I've chosen the most challenging, I'm going to choose the easiest. And I think the easiest for me, in terms of travelling, walking and pitching, has to be the overnighter that I did on the Cleveland Way. Parked in Skinning Grove, walked up onto the cliffs, found a flat spot, put the bivvy down, and away you go. And it was a spectacular sunset, even if it was particularly windy. And I think that's the beauty of living where I do. I've got the choice of a lot of national parks on the doorstep, some really great spaces to get out and disappear into. Just got so many options. So what about the most remote? Well, I was contacted early on in the challenge by someone who told me that the most remote place in the UK was a spot in the Forest of Bowland. And having been and camped there, I can definitely say it is. First of all, the spot that I went to is close to the largest colony of inland nesting seabirds in the country. They were really noisy up until sundown, and they were noisy again at sunrise as well. But that place is also the geographic centre of the UK. The way I can best describe it, if you cut out the UK into its shape and put a pencil tip underneath it, and you were to balance it, that's the exact spot that the centre of the UK would be. And I went in the middle of the year where the best of the daylight, and even so, I didn't see another soul. Yeah, can I have an Americano and a bacon sandwich, please? And that's one good thing about this walk. You're never too far from somewhere decent to eat and drink. And that's just a short deviation from the route. Just continue past Betty's, and just before you get to Burt Crag, it's there on the right hand side. And even though I had brought my own food and drink, it was just somewhere nice to get out of that wind as well, because there's been nowhere to shelter from it, that's for sure. Okay, so what's been my best sunrise of the year? Well, I think without doubt the best sunrise has to be my autumn trip to the Lake District. And I camped between Glaramara and Allen Crags. The views there were just sensational. Probably some of the best that I've had. And then in the morning at sunrise, it was just absolutely stunning. It was so beautiful to wake up to, and the walkout was sublime. So what about the best sunset? I think that has to go to the time I went to the Peak District and I camped out at Marjorie Stones. It was a really long, hot and humid day, and I had the loveliest sunset. Colours were fantastic, and I could just sit in the warmth and just watch the sun disappear. Well, you haven't missed much in the last 40 minutes or so. Once the path leaves Burt Crag, go through some residential areas, through some housing estates. There is a co-op there and a pub if you need it, and it's open, always handy. But we're pretty much skirting the north side of Harrogate now. And over my shoulder, all that building work. When this path was first conceived, all of that would have been fields. I don't even think that housing estate would have been the twinkle in anyone's eye, but making cracking progress. And a lot of what I've just passed through was part of my old beat when I was a young copper. It was over 30 years ago. It's been nice to revisit a couple little parts of it. It's brought back some memories, some good ones as well. Had my first car chase through that bit. Well, I do fancy a sit down, another cup of coffee. It's just going 12:30. I've been on the go for about 5.5 hours. Still feel fresh. And I know my pack's a lot lighter, but this is as far as I've walked for a long, long time. Okay, so what's the best bit of kit that I bought this year? Well, that'd be far too easy to say my tent, wouldn't it? So to the back end of the summer, I bought a Terra Nova Southern Cross 2 4-season tent, and I've been using it consistently ever since then. And to be honest, it's been brilliant, and I love it every time I get it out. Every time I've camped in it, it's never let me down, but that'd be too easy. So the best bit of kit that I've got this year is my Alpkit Brewer alcohol burning stove. It's just so light, so easy to use, so cheap to run. A little bit of a learning curve with it. Been using methylated spirits as my fuel. Burns a lot sootier, and I think when I use it next time, I use some bioethanol and burns a little bit cleaner. Maybe even put just a drop of water in that to help that. But that's been a great bit of kit. Okay, so I've got another housing estate to negotiate, and I'll bring you back when I get to Nid Gorge. Chocolate and cinnamon buns. There you go. Actually smell amazing. Sorry you don't get any of that. Perfect. So I'm well within Nid Gorge now, and if woodland walking's your thing, you're going to love this bit. Absolutely superb. And they've done a really good job of this path as well. Must be a long time since I've been down this end of the path, but it's usually a war of attrition. But this is great. So of all the trips, of all the camps that I had in 2024, my favourite, and I did say this was controversial, was when I went down to the Norfolk Broads and I camped on the Wherryman's Way. It's really difficult to find somewhere that's remote down there. I went to a place that can only be accessed on foot, by boat or by train, and I camped just a little bit along from there. Really, really different landscape, something that I've never experienced before. Had a great pitch, had a great night's sleep. Just waking up in that environment was just incredible. And then just as I packed up, just as I was about to leave, I had a deer that came sniffing around as well. And although I startled it, it was still a great moment to be out. It wasn't the most challenging walk in terms of terrain, but it was nice to experience a different part of the country. And I'd definitely go back there. And one of the walks that I've earmarked is the North Norfolk Coastal Path. Really fancy doing that. Whether I'll get round to it next year or not, I don't know, because I've got an awful lot planned. But you never know, if the weather's down in the west and it's better in the east, I might just find my way over there. So Knaresborough's just coming into view, and it's just gone 2:15, and I think by the time I get home it'll be around about 3 o'clock. This whole walk will have taken me around about 8 hours, certainly a lot quicker than I anticipated, and I had 2 decent stops as well. But don't tune out just yet. When I get to Knaresborough, got some views I really want to capture and show you. What I'll do, I'll put a link to the OS map route that I've done, cutting out the bits that I can think will save you a little bit of time and a little bit of heartache and muddy feet. And at the end of the video, I'll leave a link to all my walks and camps that I did in 2024. If you've enjoyed the video, please give me a thumbs up, leave a comment, subscribe if you've not done so already. All that interaction helps the channel grow, and I really appreciate it. So I'll bring you back when I get to Knaresborough. Well, 44,000 steps in, and the castle steps aren't doing me any favours. Just gonna have to power through. And that's not a bad view to end on. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.